Budget and Finance Committee to order. Before we get started, I have a few really quick announcements. I would like to wish our colleague, Councilmember Olivia Hill, a happy birthday today. We wished Councilmember Hill a 60th birthday earlier this month, but we got our dates mixed up. It's actually today, so happy 60th birthday, Councilmember Hill. We'd also like to congratulate, we had a lot of MNPS graduates over the weekend. Today, McGavick had their graduation, and forgive me, I don't know all the graduations, but coming into the garage today, we happened to see a McGavick graduate, so congratulations to McGavick, which graduated today. Congratulations to Hume Fogg. They had their graduation on Saturday. A special congratulations to Reagan Harkin. You all may have seen he had a bucket list, and he rode all of our transit routes from sophomore year to senior year. So congratulations to Reagan, and he was joined by Mayor O'Connell on his last route. And then on Friday night, we had a graduation from MLK with a special congratulations to Ella Cash, our very own Tom Cash's daughter graduated. So congratulations, Ella. And my pride and joy, Janiyah Williams graduated. So congratulations to my Janiyah as well as all of the MNPS graduates. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started on our meeting. We do have one person signed up for public comment. Pursuant to Council Rule 28, the public comment period at committee meetings is limited to items that appear on the committee agenda. All public comment speakers must present proof of Tennessee residency. First up, we have Steve Ryder speaking on RS 2025-960 with the concern. Mr. Ryder, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I haven't had time to review the substitute that was put forward by Councilmember Allen, so I'll be doing that. So I'm going to have to reserve some of my comments. I did want to speak on the the unified housing strategy. And
Mr. Ryder, it has to be germane to the item that's on the agenda per Council Rule 28. My apologies. It has to be on something that's on the budget agenda.
Okay, well then I'll pick up where I can with that then. It's my understanding she's raised it from 70% to 80%. And I think if you go out there and you do income averaging, you could go out there and have somebody who gets 100% of area median income, and then go out and put a flyer out there, a marketing campaign for students, and you're in full compliance, and you haven't solved anything. All you're doing is giving an enhanced internal rate of return for the investors. That's all you're doing. If you go out there, program design is really important. I think you should have learned that when we had the MDHA, we gave them $25 million of ARP money for a gap financing program, and they had 2 rounds, and they only could distribute about 17 million. And I guess Shelby House is giving back some of the money because they can't use it. It's just ridiculous. So program design is really important. I know that this is a part-time council. I get it. I really do. But you really need to have a financial analyst and some people who can really advise you on things, so we don't go out there and just have programs out there that really don't solve anything. And I see that time and time again. I was out here and I spoke. I said, well, you know, Cooper's plan or whatever else, I'm not, we'll just see what happens. We had a developer came up here and said, oh, there's going to be so many people. And yes, these are shovel-ready projects. They're all ready and ready to go. And they weren't.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. We appreciate that. And with that, colleagues, we're going to go into our agenda. The following items have been recommended for the consent agenda. As always, if you have something that you would like pulled from the consent agenda, please get into queue and I will recognize you. Also, colleagues, please remember to put up your yellow council member sign. Thank you, Councilmember Sawyer, Allen, and Toombs. Committee member signs, Councilmember Huffman. Thank you, Councilmember Cortez. Thank you. This is back to my teacher days. Thank you, Councilmember Johnston, Councilmember Spain, Councilmember Webb. Thank you. Everyone is in compliance. Thank Councilmember Evans Siegel. Thank you. I appreciate that. So thank you all so much for being in compliance with their request. The following items have been recommended for the consent agenda: RS 2025-1191, RS 2025-1220, RS 2025-1221, 1222, 1225, 1226, 1228, 1230, 1231, 1232, 1233, 1234, 1235, 1236, 1237, 1238, 1239, 1240, 1241, 1242, 1245, 1247, 1248, and BL 2025-822 and 824. Are there any items that colleagues would like to pull from the consent agenda? Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
RS 2025-1191 and 1220, please.
Okay, 1191 and 1220. That is agenda item number 2 that we're pulling off, and agenda item number 4 that we're pulling off. Thank you, Councilmember Johnston. Is there anything else that anyone would like to pull from the consent agenda? All right, I will go ahead and read the captions, and if there's anything else that that you all would like to pull at the end, we can do that. All right, starting with agenda item number 5. RS 2025-1221, a resolution accepting a grant from the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Davidson County General Sessions Court to provide Tennessee Certified Recovery Court Program, TCRCP, services to include intensive court supervision, mandatory drug testing, and substance abuse treatment as an alternative to I can't say that word, Director Darby. Adjudication, thank you. Adjudication or incarceration. Sponsors Porterfield, Evans, Welsh, Huffman, Gadd, Sora, Allen, and Vo. RS 2025-1222, a resolution accepting a grant from the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Davidson County General Sessions Court to provide Tennessee Mental Health Court Program services to support adult mental health court programs and treatment services to nonviolent offenders. Sponsors Porterfield, Evans, Welsh, Ellens, Huffman, Gadd, Sora, Allen, and Vo. RS 2025-1225, a resolution to approve the First Amendment to a grant contract for constructing affordable housing approved by RS 2023-2251 between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through the Metropolitan Housing Trust Fund Commission and Habitat for Humanity of Greater Nashville. Sponsors Porterfield, Gamble, Welsh, Ellis, Gadd, and Vo. RS 2025-1226, a resolution to approve the Second Amendment to a grant contract for constructing affordable housing approved by RS 2023-2251 between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through the Metropolitan Housing Trust Fund Commission and Urban League of Middle Tennessee. Sponsors Porterfield, Gamble, Welsh, Ellis, Gadd, and Vo. RS 2025-1228, a resolution amended resolution RS 2024-877 to replace the exhibit thereto with the revised version for a grant from the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Information Technology Services Department to provide services relating to the Broadband Connected Community Facilities Program. Sponsors Porterfield, Hill, and others. RS 2025-1229, 1229 is not on consent. My apologies. RS 2025-1230, a resolution accepting a grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide Tennessee breast and cervical screening program to offer individualized assistance to clients and to facilitate timely access to quality screening and diagnostic. Sponsors Porterfield, Evans, and others. RS 2025-1231, a resolution accepting a grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide a community health access and navigation in Tennessee or CHANCE program to deliver comprehensive care coordination services to eligible families and children. Sponsors Porterfield, Evans, and others. RS 2025-1232, a resolution accepting a grant from the National Parks Foundation to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation for programming improvements to Metro Nashville community centers to include music equipment for young bands, got skill sports clinics, sports league sponsorships, transportation, and supplies. Sponsors Porterfield, Gadd, and others. RS 2025-1233, a resolution accepting a grant from the Centennial Park Conservancy to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation to provide funding for one part-time position in the Parthenon Museum store. Sponsors Porterfield, Gadd, and others. RS 2025-1234, a resolution accepting a grant from the Friends of Warner Park to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation to continue funding staff positions and copier costs. Sponsors Porterfield, Gadd, and others. RS 2025-1235, a resolution accepting a grant from 2500 West Hyman LP to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Boards of Parks and Recreation to support construction of public restrooms at Fisk Park in North Nashville. Sponsors Porterfield, Gadd, and others. RS 2025-1236, a resolution accepting a grant from the Friends of Warner Park to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation to provide seasonal staffing to the Special Work Education and Trails, or SWIT program at Warner Park. Sponsors Porterfield, Gadd, and others. RS 2025-1237, a resolution accepting an in-kind grant from Music City Disc Golf to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation to provide materials for installation of a 9-hole disc golf course at Brookmead Park. Sponsors Spain, Porterfield, GAD, and others. RS 2025-1238, a resolution accepting an in-kind grant from the McCabe Park Little League to the Metropolitan Government, acted by through the Metropolitan Nashville Parks and Recreation Department for improvements to the small baseball field at McCabe Park. Sponsors Porterfield, GAD, and others. RS 2025-1239, a resolution accepting an in-kind grant from the Friends of Sevier Park to the Metropolitan Government, acting by through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation to purchase and install new soccer goals for the current soccer playing field at Sevier Park. Sponsors Porterfield, GAD, and others. RS 2025-1240, a resolution accepting an in-kind grant package from the Friends of Green Hills Park to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation to install an exercise equipment station and new water line in Green Hills Park. Sponsors Porterfield, GAD, and others. RS 2025-1241, a resolution approving Amendment 2 to a grant from the Tennessee Department of Children's Services to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Office of Family Safety to support the provision of services to families who have experienced domestic violence and child abuse or neglect. Sponsors Porterfield, Evans, and others. RS 2025-1242, a resolution approving an amendment to a contract between the Metropolitan Government and National and Davidson County, acting by and through the Metropolitan National Police Department and the Mental Health Cooperative Clinical Personnel. Sponsors Porterfield, Evans, and others. RS 2025-1245, a resolution approving a purchase sale agreement between CSX Transportation Incorporated and the Metropolitan Government and National and Davidson County, acting by and through Metro Water Services for a portion of property located adjacent to Pumping Station Road, unnumbered. Sponsors Gregg, Porterfield, Gamble, and others. RS 2025-1247, a resolution authorizing the Director of Public Property or his designee to exercise an option to purchase a certain parcel of property located at 4665 Whites Creek Pike for Metro Water Services. Sponsors Porterfield, Gamble, and others. RS 2025-1248, a resolution approving the Director of Public Property or his designee to exercise option agreements for the purchase of two floodplain properties located at 3900 Tucker Road and 3001 Hummingbird Drive for Metro Water Services. Sponsors Porterfield, Gamble, and Parker. Bills on second reading. BL 2025-822, an ordinance approving an agreement between the Metropolitan Government and National Davidson County, acting by and through National Public Library or Library and Lipscomb University for doctoral students to conduct a capstone research project. Sponsors Porterfield, GAD, and others. BL 2025-824, ordinance repealing ordinance number BL 2023-1690 as amended, establishing a stormwater capacity fee. Sponsors Porterfield and Parker. Are there any additional items that you all would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, can I get a motion? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Consent agenda passes, 0 in favor. 11 in favor, just kidding. Kept everybody on their toes. 11 in favor, 0 against, and 0 not voting. Now, the first item that is not on the consent agenda is agenda item number 1, RS 2025-960, a resolution approving an adjustment to the mixed income pilot program as authorized pursuant to ordinance number BL 2022-1170 program. Sponsors Allen, Swervo, Benedict, Coopin, Toombs, and GAD. Can I get a motion? Oh, just kidding. Sorry. Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move approval with a brief explanation.
Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Councilmember, would you like to move your substitute, or would you like to give the explanation first?
I'll wrap it all up together if that's okay. So I would like to move the substitute with a brief explanation.
Is there a second? It's been properly seconded. Councilmember, you're recognized.
So this substitute makes some changes to the mixed income pilot, which we first introduced in 2022. It had a $3 million cap, and the people immediately applied and maxed out that cap. But then market conditions changed. And so there were 2 projects that were built, which have created close to 400 affordable units. So that's a proof that the concept can work. But we need to make it more reactive to market conditions. And so what this program does is changes 3 things, which it moves the affordability criteria from 75% of area median income to 80% because that's more standard. It changes it from 10 years of abatement to the full 15-year of the affordability period, and it changes from a tiered type of calculation to a more dynamic and adjustable calculation model that we've seen used by other cities. So what I would like to do is move the substitute. It's responsive to what I've heard from many of the builders who applied the first go-round and then have been stymied by the changes in market conditions. But I don't believe we're totally there yet. There's more work to be done. But I want at least the things that we know we're comfortable with out there in the public. And so what I would like this committee to do is to approve the substitute and approve the bill so that it will not be deferred automatically, so that I can also talk about it on the council floor tomorrow night. I promise I will be brief.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. It's already been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I just have one question. Councilmember Allen, can you speak to who you work with on this legislation? I think Mr. Ryder brought a nice concern about, council members being part-time and making sure that the initiatives that we bring are vetted.
Right.
I know as council members, we tend to work with departments and work with people that have a little more expertise in the field than we do. So could you just speak to that a little bit, just for the purposes of the viewing audience, so that we can, and also to kind of address Mr. Ryder's concern of how we kind of vetted this, or how you would vetted
No,
this?
great question. So Hannah Davis and Travis, who were here earlier talking about the unified housing strategy, have put in a whole lot of work on this with me, and I've followed their direction on much of the calculations and changes that have been made. So it's definitely been informed by some experts.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the substitute say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Substitute passes 11 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Would you like to move your substitute?
And that,
Move it as substitute.
I would like to move the bill as substituted, please.
Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion on the resolution as substituted? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions or anyone not voting? All right, RS 2025-960 was approved, 11 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting, as substituted. Thank you, Councilmember Allen. The next item, RS 2025-1191, a resolution accepting the terms of a cooperative purchase and master agreement for class 4 through 8 chassis, thank you, because you knew I couldn't say it, and related equipment for the Department of General Services, sponsors Porterfield, Hill, and Styles. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. So for those who don't know, chassis are the base of vehicles, and a class 4 to 8 just has to do with the weight of the vehicle. So we're talking mostly about heavy fleet, which we have an issue with. John Cooper did a really good job of starting to sort of handle that backlog. This is a $5 million master purchasing agreement for the Department of General Services, but it only reflects a savings of $15,000. So I'm wondering what the value of this is. Do we have any other master purchasing agreements for this particular item or items? Does this limit us to only purchasing through this particular contract, or does it add to it? How is this helping us?
Thank you, Councilmember Johnston, and I see someone has moseyed their way on down. If you could just introduce yourself, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. My name is Brandon Panetta with the Office of Fleet Management. So this is one of, I think, 4 cooperatives that were already approved. This particular cooperative is with International for Class 4 through 8 chassis. The savings that was placed on it was based on finances man hours. That's the only reason it says $15,000 out of a $5 million contract. This is not something that we just are tied to and have to use. We have other contracts and cooperatives that we can buy 4 through 8 chassis from. The only thing this does help us with is that some specifications limit you to who you can buy from. So if there was a vehicle that was on the ground somewhere that specifications deemed that you couldn't buy it from somewhere else, we could utilize this avenue to buy from. It's not a must, it's a could.
Oh, thank you, Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. So I know that we have some outstanding orders for trucks and that have been ordered for years now. Will this help expedite the delivery of certain things? And are we able to cancel orders through other master agreements that have taken too long to take advantage of this, hopefully to be able to boost our inventory?
That's a possibility. I'm not going to say that 100% we would. It all depends on, yes, where the trucks are at. Like the trucks that we have ordered, if they're going to be here in 6 months, of course you don't, because sometimes it takes 12 to 18 months to build some of these trucks.
Last time I asked, we didn't even have an ETA on several trucks. They had been on order for years with 0 ETA.
That could be a possibility. Most of our orders are closed up to, I think, 23 as far as heavy. I could get more information on that, but I think we still do have some active orders up to 23, and that is correct. We we got a lot of money at one point in time, and it's kind of funneled over the years, and we kind of overloaded the avenues that we had to buy them. So yes, something like this may help.
Sorry, she keeps turning my mic off. So the money, when we place the order, that money is tied up, correct? Until delivery?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's encumbered, correct.
Okay, I think it would be incumbent upon us to look at orders where we have a delivery date of outside of 6 months or no delivery date to see if we can take advantage of this cooperative. We got to get these vehicles, and because especially when we're talking about waste services, that we're standing up this department, we're trying to pull routes into Metro away from, we have to have the trucks to do that. It's a serious problem, so I'm hoping that we're going to start managing that a little bit better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnston. Councilmember Soror, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add, especially on the savings question, since I was the one that pulled it off of consent last time, part of the responses that I got was not shared, and I wanted to share it with all of you, is that the reason why there was a difference between that particular savings and the other ones, the others were like in millions and this was 15,000, was because this was only looking at Metro's finance hours. It did not include savings on the trucks themselves. The other cooperative agreements, they were able to get an idea of what those savings on the truck would be if we use the cooperative agreement, and those numbers were added to the savings. Whereas in this one, the international did not provide that number upfront, and so it was not reflected in the calculation. That does not mean we would not get it, but it's just that we don't have an amount for it to be included, and that's why you see the disparity, why some were showing 1.5 million and this was only showing 15,000. I thought it was important to be able to explain that. And just like it was explained, we had 4 different cooperative agreements. When it's not a contract yet to buy, it just gives us the option to have 4 places to go to, especially when things are running late, like our Councilmember Justin is saying, we have the options to go to any of those 4 to get what we need. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Soror. And for anyone who didn't view 2 weeks ago, we had about 4 of these on the agenda, and this was the one that Councilmember Soror deferred because the amount of savings appeared to be significantly less than the other. So this one was deferred so we can get more information on why those savings appeared to be lower. So just catching up for anyone who didn't tune in 2 weeks ago. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 11 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item is RS 2025-1218, a resolution establishing a certified tax rate in the General Services District and declaring the amount of the certified tax rate for the Urban Services District pursuant to the provisions of Tennessee Code annotated. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Can we get someone to move the substitute? The substitute has been moved and properly seconded, and I am going to turn it over to Director Darby or Finance. Can one of you all do the explanation on the substitute here?
The substitute reflects the fact that the certified tax rate as submitted to the State Board of Equalization has been approved by the State Board of Equalization. And it takes the tax rate out to, the certified tax rate out to 4 decimal points. And you'll notice that in the substitute resolution. The General Services certified tax rate would be 1.9953 per each $100 of assessed value. And the USD tax rate would be 0.2271 per $100 of assessed value. The substitute also includes the calculation form as submitted to the state and approved and signed by both the assessor and the mayor.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Councilmember Johnston, you are recognized.
I just think it's important for everyone to understand what just happened or what will happen tomorrow when we adopt this. This is the certified tax rate, the equalized rate after the appraisal, right? And so once this goes into effect, this is the new tax rate. So when we start contemplating a tax levy increase, it's not off of $3.25. It's off of $2.22. This is the new rate. So if you're looking at your new appraised value and your assessed value, which if you're in a home, it's 25% of that. If you do the multiplication, if you're in the USD, $2.22 times your assessed value divided by 100, that's your tax liability. So we are looking at a significant tax increase with this budget ordinance that we're looking at. And the base rate right now is $2.22 combined.
Councilmember Sawyer, you're recognized.
Thank you. I just want a correction of that statement. And maybe I'm hearing it wrong. Yes, the certified tax rate, which the controller approved, is the revenue neutral rate that we got, but it doesn't go effect yet. So it's not the rate that people can start multiplying to get what they pay. Is that correct?
I'm going to defer that to finance. That's my understanding, Councilmember Sawyer, but I want to defer that to finance, and you all are recognized.
Thanks. Mary Jo Wiggins, Finance. The $2.222 would be is the certified revenue neutral, not in effect now, but that would be the next tax rate that the bills would be generated on, if nothing else changes. Right. The proposed budget as filed changes that. There's legislation with a new tax levy for this council to.
So I just don't want people thinking that the 2222 now is what they got. I'm saying that, I guess maybe we're saying it in a roundabout way. People cannot jump and start saying that's their rate yet because it's not finalized. Oh, no, it's finalized unless we change it. And it could be subject to change.
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. I just didn't want it mixed up and people, there's so many rates out there. So, all right, thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
Thank you, Councilmember Sawyer. Any additional comments, questions, or concerns? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? The substitute is approved, 11 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Can I get a motion for the resolution substituted? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? The substitute is what Director Darby explained about taking out so the question was, what is the substitute? The substitute is now been approved by the comptroller, and it took out the number to 4 decimal points. So that's what Director Darby was explaining. All right, seeing no additional discussion, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries, 11 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item is RS 2025-1220, a resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $158 million in aggregate principal amount of interfund tax anticipation notes of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, sponsored Porterfield. Can I get a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. I just wanted to give finance an opportunity. I just think especially what we're talking about right now, to have an issuance of $158 million on consent is irresponsible. So if Mary Jo could explain this TAN, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Ms. Wiggins, you are recognized. Mrs. Wiggins, you're
Thank you,
recognized.
Chair. The tax anticipation notes are basically an internal debt that we take out because we don't receive all of our property tax revenue at the front end of the year. So it's a little bit of a bridge where we are actually borrowing internally from our other funds to have enough cash flow to sustain us until we receive the majority of our property tax revenue. So tax anticipation notes is TANs, and that's what we use for our cash flow internally.
Thank you, Director Wiggins. Councilmember Johnston, did you have a follow-up? Thank you so much. Any additional comments, questions, or concerns? Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you. Just again, for more clarification, my understanding is this comes from water because they get money year round, so they have it now. And I had asked the question, does this slow down their ability to fix water pipes and things like that? Can you address that question officially?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. That is correct. Typically, these borrowings do come from water since they have the cash flow. And no, it does not impede their ability to run their own operations. They have enough to let us borrow and get back to them.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Any additional comments, questions, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 11 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item is RS 2025-1223, a resolution approving an economic impact plan for Rivergate Mall Economic Development Project. Councilmember Webb, you're recognized.
I'm not sure who pulled it off consent. I think Bob has some things he want to say.
It's not on consent because it has an amendment to it, but could you want to move it and then we'll talk about the
Yeah,
amendment?
she's going to move.
You want to move the resolution and then she'll move her amendment?
Okay, I'd like to move the bill.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded. Councilmember Evan Siegel, you're recognized.
Maybe. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the amendment with a brief comment.
Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Councilmember Evan Siegel, you're recognized.
Thanks. Just to explain this amendment, one of the things that we learned when the Bellevue Mall deal defaulted is that there had been an appeal of the taxes that year, and we were not able to find out what evidence they put forth. The value was lowered pretty significantly as a result of that appeal. And then some comparable properties and parts of that property sold for significantly more not long after, which means they were getting a benefit. But then appealing it to not have to pay it because then it just lasts longer. And then just extending and extending the benefit that they were given without our having any knowledge. So this amendment just makes it where if the tax assessment is appealed, then we have a right to know about that and to the evidence that they present.
Thank you, Councilmember Evan Siegel. Is there any additional comments, questions, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Councilmember Johnston?
We're on the bill as amended now, correct?
I'm closing out the vote for it, but we're voting on the amendment right now. So I was asking if anyone was abstaining from the amendment.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to give Mr. Mendez the opportunity to sort of explain the TIF and any sort of,
Councilmember Johnston,
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of calling the vote, but then I will call on you. Were you voting against it or not voting or
no,
voting in favor?
I'm a yes, but
Okay, so let me call the vote and then I got you.
Thank you.
All right, so 11 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting for the amendment. So now can we get a renewed motion of the resolution as amended?
so moved.
Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. Sorry. Can I get Mr. Mendez to explain just the deal in general and what sort of risk the taxpayer would have with TIFs and all that fun stuff? Go.
Absolutely. We have the Honorable Mr. Mendez with us. You're recognized.
Thanks, Chair. Bob Mendez from the Mayor's Office. Thanks for the question. I think to skip through a couple of the early parts of the analysis quickly, I think everybody would agree that the Rivergate Mall area is not doing as well as it used to be. The mall is generating property tax revenue that's down about 45% over the last decade compared to the Bellevue Mall, which has seen redevelopment over the last decade. Revenues there are up over 500%. So there's a significant difference in how Rivergate is performing. It's 57 acres, so it's a lot of space. The proposal from the developer, Maris, which has already been approved by the Planning Commission and has had public meeting at your last meeting and is up on third reading tomorrow, would redevelop the existing mall area with multifamily housing, townhomes for sale, senior housing, retail, restaurants, sports and entertainment facilities, medical office, general office, and hotel. What Metro is proposing, what the Mayor's Office is proposing to do is what's called tax increment financing, and that uses no money from a capital spending plan, but it's future new property tax revenue. A portion of that would be used to finance the development now. So the proposal is that over a 25-year time period, a total amount of a maximum of $42 million of new property tax revenue would be allowed to be used by the developer. That stream of payments over 25 years would let them borrow approximately $22.5 million now from a third-party bank to go toward the infrastructure related to the project. We know that the total amount of infrastructure for the project is expected to be somewhere between $35 and $40 million. I can say unequivocally, as Metro is the owner of them all, that the idea that there would be $35 to $40 million worth of infrastructure is incredibly believable and consistent with what we think about Global Mall. In fact, we think the infrastructure at Global Mall is likely higher than that. So by providing a stream of payments over 25 years, it lets them borrow 22 and a half about. Now they contribute that 22.5 million to the infrastructure that the city of Nashville and the city of Goodlettsville will own, and they'll pay for the rest of the infrastructure that gets turned over to the government. In order to make this happen, we need to have what's called an economic impact plan approved by both the Industrial Development Board and the council. The IDB approved it last Wednesday, and that's what you have before you now. As far as the property tax split, there's a long history of tax increment financing in Nashville, and this is a bit of a different way of doing it. On this, Metro, like all tax increment deals, will always retain what's called the base taxes. So the amount of taxes being paid for 2024, Metro will always get that paid first. And then in addition to that, it's what we're calling the debt service taxes. So when there's new revenue, say $100 worth of new revenue, Metro will keep the debt services portion for itself. In the budget y'all have before you now, there's about 12% of the budget is toward paying debt. So in this upcoming year, if the deal were in place, 12% of the new revenue Metro would keep off the top to pay for its own long-term debt obligations. And then of the balance, the developer will be able to keep all of the new revenue for years 1 through 5. And then for years 6 to 25, it'll be a 75-25 split where Metro keeps 25% in addition to the debt services piece, and the developer will keep the 75%. For the first time for an industrial development board deal, included in the total amount allowed to be used by the developer, it'll fund up to $25,000 per year of third-party administrative expenses by the industrial development board. There's, in the legal language, there's no recourse against Metro other than the stream of tax payments. That means there's no obligation for Metro or the Industrial Development Board to pay anything beyond the portion of property taxes that I mentioned out of pocket. So if for some reason the project faltered and the developer was having a hard time paying that third-party loan, Metro wouldn't have to pay anything ever other than the share of property tax that I've already mentioned. Some things that we get besides the infrastructure, and to be clear, we're primarily buying infrastructure with our money here. But in addition to that, we're getting a WeGo facility that'll be on an all-access corridor and some senior affordable housing. A lot of you know the lingo. If LIHTC credits, low-income housing tax credits, are achieved, the units will be between 50 and 80% of area median income. Otherwise, 10% of the units will be available at 80 to 100% AMI. Importantly, I know you all just heard about the unified housing strategy. There's a significant volume of residential units here, expected to be over 800 units in the long run. I know 800 compared to the 90,000 that are listed in the unified housing strategy. That's a big gap, but 1% of the necessary housing listed in the unified housing strategy is a big deal. Metro, the mayor's office has tried to focus on this deal and balancing the direct benefits to Metro from its share of the property taxes versus what's outgoing to the developer here. We're figuring out the economic analysis in the report you guys received. There's all sorts of indirect benefits from sales tax from new households, sales tax from employees, sales tax from construction workers. And the truth is, we're largely discounting all of that to zero in our analysis, figuring that the indirect benefits, money will be spent somewhere in the county. What we're focused on and whether this is worth it to Metro is comparing the value of the money that from the property taxes that they'll get to use versus the value of the property taxes we keep, plus some of the hotel tax and just a heavily discounted amount of the sales tax. And we think it turns out on benefit to be good for Metro. From a process point of view, I would let you all know that I already mentioned it's been approved by IDB. The developer and the city of Goodlettsville have let us know that there could possibly be an additional small amount of tax increment financing between the developer and the city of Goodlettsville. A lot of us don't really focus on it, but City of Goodlettsville charges its own sliver of property taxes, and we trust our friends and brethren with the city up there to make good choices about that money. We've been an open book with the City of Goodlettsville leadership about Metro's perspective and resources that we've looked at, analysis we've made, and trust that they'll make that decision. One way or the other, compared to what Metro does, I think it'll be small enough where it doesn't impact the analysis for our taxpayers or not. So with that, I hope you approve the resolution as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Mendez. Councilmember Johnston, did you have a follow-up? Councilmember Soror, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to say that Councilmember Mendez spent a lot of time on TIF. I could remember when we served together. And I think that the work that he did over the years is part of the reason why most of us have so much confidence in any deal that is a part of. And honestly, some of the questions that I think about on any of the stuff that he put together, and I think it's a problem by the time I call him, is already factored into the agreement. It's just, and so I wanted to commend you for doing a wonderful job for the city. But we cannot have something this big without us asking any question. You trust and then you verify. And so I have a couple of just general questions to ask. My first question, you've already answered the one on the debt, so we're not guaranteeing anything. The second one is on the, when I look at the economic impact plan, it says there's going to be a couple of land swap with some of the other people, other parties in the area like Dillard. So what happens if the land is not acquired? That's the first one. The second one also is that the economic implants plan says there's a need for a senior housing, but that is subject to the receipt of LIHTC. And it says if LIHTC is not available, that 10% will be guaranteed by the company for senior housing. So my question is, since we don't do inclusionary zoning and we cannot make developer do anything, is this something that we can enforce if LIHTC is not given? And then the last question that I have for you is that maybe another one, you can handle them, one, two. If revenue is low, the net revenue is low, is there an order of reimbursement, especially when there's a debt involved? And then the last question definitely is that historically we've always done our TIF with MDHA, and this is the first time we're doing it with IDB. Is there any reason why this is structured this way?
Thank you, Mr. Mendez. You're recognized.
Thanks, Council Member. Let's see. So the land swap, just to describe that a little bit, and this is another one that, given the fact that we're redeveloping another mall out in Antioch, this sounds very familiar. Just a little side story on Global Mall, the master plan approved by the Planning Commission and the Council last summer would call for roads, some of the roads to be on land that Metro doesn't own. It's owned by Nashville State. In order to do the roads out at Global Mall, we'll have to effect a land swap that works for everybody. And similarly, what the developers run into on this is in order for the Dillards to continue to be there, stand alone, and have sensible parking, there's a win-win where the developer, once they own the land, will be able to swap some with Dillards to make the whole thing work. So it makes sense to us why. And then as far as the deal goes, I doubt this would happen, but if for some reason that land swap didn't take place and the developer wasn't able to move forward, this basically is stillborn. The deal never gets to a point where property tax revenue is being used. So that's the first question. On the housing, the developer came to us intending to do senior housing out there. So this isn't a situation where we've traded or insisted, and with there being in an agreement, we believe the agreement's enforceable. And then if the hypothetical for the next question is if, say, there's new tax revenue, but it's not enough to pay Metro's debt service as well as the developer's loan obligation, what happens? And the pecking order is Metro's debt service amount gets grabbed first for Metro, and then the balance. Now, again, if revenue's low and it's, $100 worth of revenue, and we're this year, $12 of that would be grabbed by Metro first. And if the balance was inadequate to pay the developer's loan with its third-party bank, that's between them and their bank. Metro is interested bystander to that, but not financially interested. And then the MDHA question. So there's actually, I think, 3 existing TIFs through the Industrial Development Board, Bellevue Mall, Oracle, and Madison Station. And all 3 of those are through IDB. And basically what it boils down to is the only place you can have an MDHA TIF is an established, geographically constrained redevelopment district. And I think MDHA has 10 or 12 redevelopment districts that a lot of you know where a lot of them are. But Bellevue Mall, Madison Station, Oracle, none of them were in a redevelopment district. And so if you're outside an MDHA redevelopment district and you fit the criteria under state law to have an economic improvement plan, then you're allowed to do tax increment financing through the IDB, which is what we're doing here.
Thank you. Councilmember Sawyer, you recognize?
Thank you. Is it just the MDHA that is reported to the state? Because I went to the state TIF report plan, and that's where I got all the list of the TIF that we have. I did not see any other IDB. So is it just the MDHA that is reported? Is that why those other ones were not there?
Yeah, and this may be an area where the city overall might need, and MDHA is semi-independent, where we could use some improvement. When this council between 2015 and 2020 passed a lot of TIF reform, some of the development community started thinking, well, that TIF reform was about MDHA. Let's start thinking about the Industrial Development Board. And so the reason we had I would argue, we had a couple TIFs through IDB last term was in part because of the reform of MDHA TIF. And we definitely don't have systems to combine the 2 pieces of information. MDHA reports on their TIF, and as you know, IDB doesn't have any full-time staff. And so we could probably use some working on bringing those together.
Thank you. Councilmember Allen, and then Councilmember Evans Siegel, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Inspired by then Councilmember Mendez, I worked on the tax abatement study and formulating committee to sort of take it to the next level beyond the TIF study that he had caused to happen. And one of the outcomes of that, which is in the works, is to create on the trustees' website a single source that says, here are all the tax abatements that we have issued, and you can go to the IDB website to find out more about this and MDHA to find out more about that. So that is in the works, and the hope is to have a single landing place where all that can be seen, and then it'll drive you to the different places where it comes from, because it has sort of been mysterious from the get-go. So that's in the works.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Evans Siegel, you recognize?
Thank you, Chair. Piggybacking on that, Ms. Darby, many years ago, did a lot of work to go through old IDB documents and work with Mr. Wiltshire to put all those on the website, historic ones, active ones, all of that. When the website was redone, and this is a hill that I will die on if I have to, all of those disappeared. And so all the hard work that went into that is inaccessible online currently. And I would just encourage, to the extent it is being put together, that whatever archive version of that website exists is brought back, because I know it was a lot of work and it was really important historical work, and it was the only records we had.
Thank you for that historical knowledge as a former IDB board member. So thank you for that, Councilmember Evan Siegel, and shout out to Director Darby for their hard work. So thank you for that. Any additional comments, questions, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 11 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item is RS 2025-1224, a resolution approving a grant from the Tennessee Housing Development Agency to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Action Commission, to be used for emergency rental assistance eviction prevention program in accordance with the purposes set forth in Section 3201 of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 to provide financial assistance and housing stability services to eligible tenants. Sponsors Porterville, Evans, Welsh, Ellis, Huffman, Gass, Swerr, Allen, Vogt, and Benedict. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Cortez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is there anyone from the Metro Action Commission here who could just talk about the program and what the parameters are to be eligible for it?
Thank you so very much for that question. If you could please introduce yourself, sir, you are recognized.
Hi, good evening, council members. I am from the Metropolitan Action Commission. I'm actually the current interim executive director for the agency, and also the Transformation and Innovation Director. And so the ERAPP is the eviction prevention program that pretty much allows us to proactively prevent homelessness. And so year to date, we've been awarded about $2 million. 2 years ago, we were appropriated $1.4 million, and $350,000 of that amount is what we are asking to, on behalf of Metro, receive to help our families. There is another $220,000 that will be coming through as well in the next 2 weeks. The requirements are based on income and also a demonstrated proof of hardship. And so what that does is it allows us to help provide some form of gap support for families while they transition within employment. And also while they transition the workforce, the workplace, it just allows us to help families keep their homes. And they will be officially shutting down the program at the end of June 30. So what we're trying to do is to help as many families as possible before the program shuts down. And that's why there's a lot of renewed activity around drawing the dollars to Davidson County. Now, the reason we're amending is because THDA had errors in the language when the contract was first presented to us. And so they revised the language to make it appropriate for local government entities. And that's why there is an amendment that goes with the contract itself.
Thank you so very much. And could you also give your name, please?
Oh, yes, I am. My apologies. I am Dairo Oluwadamilola.
Thank you so very much. Councilmember Cortez, did you have a follow-up question? Oh,
Chair. Thank you, Chair. Why is the program being shut down?
DOGE feels that their money has to be reallocated to some other programs, and so they are shutting down ERA-related funding, pretty much. It has an ERA designation to it.
And are only families who are renting eligible, or if there's a homeowner that can demonstrate hardship, are they eligible before the program closes?
Mortgage owners are also equally eligible, though we have a lower number of those, but they are, particularly senior citizens that are homeowners, they are most risk, so we see a lot of those as well. And so yes, homeowners are eligible if they can demonstrate hardship.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
thank you. And I wanted to ask a follow-up question just to make sure that we're understanding correctly. So the program is shutting down due to cuts from the federal government cutting funding for emergency rental assistance programs. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Wasn't this originally funded through ARPA? And that's why the program is coming to an end, because they were one-time dollars to begin with?
I will turn that over to Finance. You're recognized.
Mary Jo Wiggins, Finance. So yes, there was a significant portion of funding from ARP that went to MAC. They did an incredible job distributing emergency rental assistance in close to like $100 million or something, different than this eviction money. This is a different program. Daryl's your expert, if it's ending because of the new administration is saying we're shutting it down. I mean, ARPA is valid until 12/31/26. So if they've decided to end the program early, they're ending the program early. I'm not familiar with that, but I can tell you that originally MAC did have, when ARP was originally released in 2021, there were a lot of dollars for emergency rental, not necessarily eviction program. This is a different program than original, so.
Okay, but we went through, so there's some conflation. So the ARPA dollars, because it says we're using this in accordance with what we did in 2021 with American Rescue Plan. But those dollars that we added from ARP were to support an existing program, correct? It was just to bolster that. And we went through those dollars, correct? The ARPA dollars.
We did.
A long time ago.
A long time ago.
A long time ago,
That was
okay.
about
So-
$87 million.
Okay,
Precise.
so the emergency rental assistance eviction program, I just want to make sure we're talking about, like, again, I think we're conflating some things, because in the caption, it says, set forth in section 3201 of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. But it's a conflation, right?
So they said, well, I can actually help you dig a little bit into the genesis for the funding and probably send that after the fact. But I will tell you for starting that this is a variation of that, because we are required as an agency to draw out our eligibility based on those requirements. But they were very specific that the dollars for these iteration of that funding should go to eviction prevention itself, as against just helping families stabilize. The ARPA funds were more just COVID-related. This was very specific to eviction prevention. So it's a variation of that and also an offshoot of that as well.
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
Thank you so very much. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries, 11 in favor, 0 against, and 0 not voting. Thank you, Interim Director, for coming and answering those questions, and congratulations on that position. The next item is RS 2025-1229, a resolution approving an intergovernmental license agreement between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County by and through the Department of General Services and the Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security for parking spaces adjacent to the Driver Services Center located at 5244 Hickory Hollow Parkway, Nashville, Tennessee. Sponsors Gamble, Hill, and Porterfield. Can I get a motion? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Allen, give me one moment here. You are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wondered why are these spaces in that particular spot? Do they also have an office out there?
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. And do we have someone here that can answer that question? And if you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Abraham Westcott, General Services. Yes, there is a location there for the Department of Safety and Homeland Security.
Thank you so very much. And the reason I did not want this to be on consent was because I wanted to make sure that it was like very clear. Because if you look at the analysis and you look at the legislation, it's the Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security, which is different than the Homeland Security that people may be thinking of. So this is for like the driver's license office. So I just wanted to make sure that that was very clear to everyone. If there is no other discussion, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 11 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. The next item is RS 2025-1244, a resolution authorizing the Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claim of Donald Stickrod against the Metropolitan Government in Nashville and Davidson County in the amount of $65,000, and the said amount to be paid out of the Self-Insured Liability Fund. Sponsor Porterfield. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Johnston, you are recognized.
So when I was reading, it says that, so they found that the Metro is liable because the stop sign in the intersection was obstructed, I guess, by some overgrowth. Is that correct?
Do we have someone here from legal that? Okay. Thank you so much. If you could just introduce yourself, please. You're recognized.
Good evening. Andrew McClanahan, a senior counsel with Metro Department of Law. There hasn't been an exact finding of that. That's the allegation in this case. And so anytime there's an allegation that there's a stop sign that's obstructed by a tree limb, that would, of course, be a dangerous or defective condition for which Metro could be held liable. And then they would have to prove that Metro had notice. Here in this instance, there was a complaint in June before this accident occurred in November, and the records indicate that NDOT went out and trimmed the tree. And then in December, NDOT went out for another time to conduct an intersection study here. And there was a recommendation that overgrowth be trimmed at this location. There was also a sight distance issue here. And then a third complaint about overgrowth at the stop sign in April of 2021. So that's several complaints there that the trier of fact could say that there's a recurring condition in here, and perhaps not enough was done to trim the tree. Of course, we have defenses against that. And then there's a second complaint here that the intersection didn't have proper traffic control or should have been a four-way stop. So there are multiple fronts that we have to defend against in this case. We feel like we have good defenses, and that's reflected in the settlement amount. But anytime you have to defend on multiple fronts and you can get a settlement such as this, I would recommend it.
And it may have been in the analysis, and I just missed it because I'm reading on my phone, but what was the original lawsuit amount?
I don't recall the specific, but the GTLA cap for a case like this, or Governmental Tort Liability Act cap, is $300,000, and usually plaintiffs put that
Go
in
for
there.
the max?
Right.
Okay. I just think it's really important for us to think about when we have these types of complaints on intersections and overgrowth and all that. I mean, it obviously shows that we had an issue at this particular intersection. And so what should we be doing from a perspective of NDOT, the department policy to handle these things so that we don't put ourselves in a situation of liability? Thank you for your advice.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnston. Councilmember Cortez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do we know if the tree or the shrubbery was on private property? And if so, is that individual or is that entity liable for any of that?
The trunk of the tree was on private property, and we did allege comparative faults against the property owner. The plaintiffs chose not to bring the property owner in, but of course, the branches were growing over the stop sign. At least that's what the allegation was. So you could have some fault assessed to the property owner here, but in my experience, that's pretty tough to prove, specifically when the government is charged to make sure that its signs are clear and unobstructed.
Do we know how often NDOT checks signs when there is shrubbery near it like this?
We do have a representative here from NDOT, and I don't want to speak for them if he wants.
No, it's fine. You can speak for him. I'm just kidding.
NDOT usually uses a complaint-driven system, so if complaints come into the hub, then they're pretty good about responding to those, and that was reflected in this case. There was a complaint in June, then they dispatched a tree crew out there and then dealt with the situation. So there's about 2,200 miles of roadway in Davidson County and over 100,000 signs, I'm sure. So it's very hard to be proactive. So it's really a complaint-driven system.
Well, thank you for the feedback. That's helpful.
Thank you for that, and also thank you for lifting up that there is evidence that NDOT did address the complaint, so thank you for that. Councilmember Johnston, you want to be recognized again?
Thank you. It is complaint driven, which I think a lot of times the public thinks, oh, somebody else is handling it, and so it doesn't get handled. So I think that's inefficient, number one. But also, I know in my area that has a heavy tree canopy, that when we do address those concerns, that it's very limited in what they cut back. And when you're in a heavy growing season like we are here in April, May, June, that it takes literally a matter of weeks before that overgrowth comes back. And so should we be looking at a policy to discuss with that particular homeowner, because a lot of times, as he's saying, the trunk is on private property, but it is Metro's responsibility to make sure that our signs and like street signs and the right of way is clear of obstruction. But I think we need to do a better job of being proactive, number one, and not waiting on those complaints, because we've got people out in the field all day, every day. But also to look at it from a more sustainable position where we're taking care of it once and for at least an entire season and not just a few weeks, because you just mentioned there were multiple complaints within 1 year. So I just think we could do a better job so we don't get ourselves into these situations and where people are getting hurt.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnston. Did we have any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 11 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. And thank you so very much, sir. And the last item that was not on the consent agenda is agenda item number 31, BL 2025-823, an ordinance approving a solar services agreement between the Metropolitan Government and National Davidson County, acting by and through the Department of General Services and Cherry Street Asset Management Holdings, LLC, for the design, construction, operation, management, and administration services related to photovoltaic solar facilities located at the Southeast Police Precinct, sponsors Porterville, Evans, and others. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 11 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Meeting adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.